So it looks like I picked up about 100 subscribers after being featured by the distributist, and I would tell you to see that video, but if you're watching this, it means you almost certainly already saw that video. I hope that the 100 subscribers I get actually continue to watch my videos, and maybe I'll get picked up by the algorithm at some point. Now I realize that most of my subscribers might not know what to expect because I hardly have any videos on my channel. Of course, I'm going to make political videos, and I'm going to start out making a lot of political videos, but I'm not going to exclusively make political videos. I'm going to make videos about whatever content happens to be interesting to me. Now, the other two videos on my channel are free speech. I realize that the quality on those videos is pretty bad, but I encourage you to watch them anyway because it's a pretty important topic. But now I should launch into the topic of this video. So this image is something that was sent home to parents of children in a preschool. So let's answer one or two of the questions. The first question, how do you describe social justice? Well, cancer.
Okay, but to be a bit more serious, one of my problems with this philosophy is that it's not honest about what it is.
So, what's the problem with this term, social justice? Well, it's a hyphenated value. If you take something like justice, it has a positive connotation. But social justice, is that not justice? What is it? Well, we can draw a distinction between the two types of justice. Criminal justice, which is you commit a crime and you get punished, maybe sent to jail. The second type of justice is, of course, social justice, which means that if you do something perceived as bad by your community or whoever is judging you, then you will be shamed. So it's the cultural aspect of justice. And this is hardly a new phenomenon. Social justice, by this definition that I'm giving now, rough definition, has existed for as long as there have been human societies. In fact, it's reasonable to assume that in ancient history, social justice was more prevalent than criminal justice. In fact, maybe it is now. Shame is a big factor in our decisions. But the problem with this social justice movement is it's not obvious what it is. Because social justice, the broader term, the social shaming, or the social customs, not limited to shaming, has always been called something different. Religion. And a religion isn't necessarily good or bad, but we are in the presence of an unnamed religion. And the fact that it's not named a religion is an adaptation that allows it to overcome separation of church and state. So, for example, why does this matter? Because if I send my child to a school, I don't have a child, but suppose I send my child to a school, I want to know, is this a secular school? Is it a religious school? What is the dogma of this school? If I send my child to a secular school, I don't want it to be a bait-and switch where, oops, actually, it's a social justice philosophy school.
I think quite reasonably, want to know the religion of the institutions that impact me. And then these people, they have the nerve to say, oh, we're secular, we're secular. They may be secular on the God question, on whether or not there is a God. Yeah, sure, you're secular. But religions believe a lot more things than whether or not there is a God. So, it should be possible to have a religion that doesn't necessarily believe in God.
Okay, but to answer question 4, what social justice issues are you facing in your life? I believe this is meaning to ask, what social justice identity are you? And the answer to that is none. I might try to come up with something if I think harder, but then it would be a stretch. So now I'm touching on a more honest reason why my disposition might not be too attracted to social justice, because I'm the identity being targeted here. And people might come back, wait, no one is being targeted, we just want to lift up the weak. We don't want to target people, bring them down. But manifestly, this is not true. The dogma I am talking about does want to bring people down. It specifically targets status-related games. In effect, games that are zero-sum. It doesn't care about, say, technological pursuits or pursuits that are win-win. It cares specifically about who gets the position in the short run, situations that are zero-sum. But I like to think that whatever my identity was, I would still have around these same views about this topic, because in general, I do not like to be told what to do by anyone. So, am I coming out just against justice in general? Well, sort of. Obviously, I recognize that we do need some sort of social standards and that we do need some laws to prevent egregious criminal behavior. But with that said, I don't trust anyone who doesn't have a little bit, or even a lot, of an anarchist or libertarian streak in them. Someone who just doesn't like to be told what to do. And I mean not even necessarily pertaining to themselves specifically, but someone who just distrusts authority in general, distrusts one authority telling one other person what to do. So in a way, I actually sympathize with the people who are like, oh, you think that I can't do that? Well, I'm just going to do it just because it's a forbidden fruit, just to prove that you don't have authority over me. And at a point, that becomes cringy, edgelord edginess. But to be honest, between the two groups, I sympathize a lot more with edgelords and edgy people than I do with people who are just super sanctimonious, people who try to police other people's behavior and take themselves super seriously, because the one thing I cannot stand is sanctimony. So, is social justice a big enough thing that we should care about whatever it is that is unnamed, whatever it is we want to call it? Well, quite unequivocally, yes. I think of it like concentric circles. At the center, you have the classic, social justice, as in you see on some places of the internet. But then there are concentric circles. The furthest ring of the concentric circle contains most of the influence, probably most of the power in the Western world. Now, an interesting question to ask is, where does that power reside? And a lot of people who said that power resides at the universities. It resides at a lot of places. One particular nexus of power is the universities. This is something that gets talked about a lot. But to be honest, I think that the over-focus on universities is a bit of a distraction. Do you know what is much more influential than the universities? Kindergarten and elementary school. Because do you know when people are most unquestioning, most willing to take up the beliefs that they'll hold for the rest of their lives? When they're very young, when they'll believe whatever an adult says to them. This is how you truly indoctrinate people, to the point where certain dogmas are heritable. You just tell the dogma to your child, and the child will believe it. And do you know who is most ideological? Who, in the spreaders of information, are the most want to push their particular agenda? It's probably kindergarten, elementary school teachers. And it doesn't matter what the mainstream believes, because the fact of the matter is that these teachers control the beliefs of the future generations. They have the kids for half the day and they can coordinate their lessons to push exactly the message that they want. And if you're a boomer, you definitely have no idea what type of thing is taught in elementary schools nowadays.
Because who ran the schools in the past?
I don't know, maybe Catholic nuns. And then there was a brief transition period where the infrastructure of more religiously oriented education was still in place, but it lost the religious nature, and then it transitioned into what we have today.
So, to focus more on the collective beliefs of society, there was a time in the past before universal education was even a thing.
Generally, people were more likely to live with their parents, which means that you had multiple generations under the same roof. So the children would learn all their beliefs from their family, which included their parents, then their grandparents, and their peers to an extent, but it was all part of the same mesh that passed on information. But with education, now you have a bunch of people of the same age all together, and at the front of the classroom, there's someone to give information. It's a much different model. The ideology that can best exploit that model will be victorious. So I want this to be a short video, but if you're interested in more about my thoughts on this particular topic, on religion and that sort of thing, ideology, I've written a bit about this, so you can check out my blog. I have a post called something like, "Once it's called a religion, it's lost."
I also just encourage you to check out my blog in general because there isn't much content here yet, so there's a lot more content there.
What I will do is I will migrate a lot of content from there to here because no one reads blogs, but a lot of people watch YouTube videos. But that's not all that I'll do. I'll alternate maybe one old idea, and then in between that, every other video will be kind of an off the cuff, just new take. And hopefully, I will also have some videos that are new ideas, new takes, that are simultaneously they're more well scripted, more well edited.